delighted to have with me today Stuart Alexander, who is Chairman of GemCap Investment Funds and a Director of Gemini Capital Management. Stuart's actually a very good friend of mine. I've known Stuart for some 32 years, and we actually both set up our businesses at the same time. And what a year that was, 2009. Welcome, Stuart. How are you doing?
Yes, good morning. Yes, good to be here. Yes, 2009 seems so long ago. Challenging times then and, well, challenging times today.
Totally agree. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I know you're quite keen to start promoting your business in the Middle East to investment management companies, of which there are many, of course. So let's use this next 10 minutes or so just to find out a bit more about your business and also the funds business and all these different acronyms that are used like UCITS and CCAP. So first of all, Stuart, could you just give me a little bit of background about what Gemini actually does?
Well, as you said at the beginning, we were founded in 2009, initially as a third-party distribution business, so introducing fund managers to wealth managers, IFAs, etc. across the UK and Europe. Some of you may know 24 Asset Management, and we launched them in 2009, so we had great success with them. But we quickly recognized there was a significant demand coming from fund managers across in the US, Asia, and throughout Europe, etc., who needed to create structures which were not only transparent but recognizably easy to distribute here into the UK and European market. Some were coming to us with Cayman products. We really liked their product. We loved the strategy. We really loved the people. Everything about it was fantastic. However, the one issue was the structure of the product, in the sense of it was either closed-ended or domiciled in an area that just wasn't cognizant for distribution in the UK and European markets. So we launched our own funds business in Dublin, which is the Gemini Capital Investment Funds, in 2011. That's grown significantly into by the time of 2016, we launched the management company, which sits above the funds board and basically manages the day-to-day running of the funds business in Dublin for us. And we now have 7, soon to be 9 managers on there, about 15, 16 funds there, again with 2 or 3 coming on the next couple of months, and just shy of $3 billion on there. So we're one of the fastest growing platforms out of Dublin. In fact, one of the fastest growing platforms around. And because we've got, yeah, thank you. It's been hard work, and trust me, this last quarter has put us to our test, and I'm glad to say we come through with flying colours. Because we come from a distribution background, we talk about distribution a lot, and I know that's relevant very much in the Middle East. So hence we're having this conversation.
Good. Okay, well, let's take a scenario. Imagine there's an asset management company regulated by the DFSA in Dubai looking to launch a MENA equity fund. What are the key areas that management team needs to consider before any launch?
Well, the single most important thing, without doubt, is knowing who you're going to sell it to and where you're going to sell it to. Those 2 elements in that one entity is basically all about distribution. If you don't know who you're going to sell it to and where you're going to sell it to, the rest of it becomes irrelevant, because it doesn't matter how good the strategy is and how good the performance is. If the people you're selling it to can't buy it, don't want to buy it, or struggle to buy it, then it becomes irrelevant. So distribution is without doubt the first thing that fund managers should be looking at. So before you launch a strategy, go and talk to people in the marketplace who are fund buyers or asset allocators, and just basically do what I call it the sniff test, do the sanity check to make sure that if you're coming out with something weird and wonderful, that people can buy it. We had a manager a couple of years ago now approached us and said, "Oh, can you help? We're going to launch this fund. We're going to do distribution, blah, blah, blah." Asked him what it was, and it was an Australian small cap mining company fund. And I was like, okay, a couple of issues there. Australian, small cap, mining. you are, and all of those just don't tick the boxes as far as an asset allocation fund buyer here in the UK or Europe or anywhere, basically, because your allocation is going to be tiny. Equally, it's a big differentiator. So if you do get some allocation, you'll get quite a good lot, but your breadth of distribution is going to be very difficult.
Besides the distribution, what other areas are going to be of vital importance for this asset management company?
Well, once you've identified what a distribution is, then you come down to the strategy and whether or not the strategy will sell. Then you come down to the structure, and that's really important, and that links back to the distribution. So if you're doing a closed-ended fund, well, again, that narrows things down. If you're going to do an LLP or something out of Jersey or something like that, again, that can narrow things down. You then look at the domicile of where the product's going to be. So if you're looking at, say, a Cayman product, that can be quite challenging for some people as to whether or not they can buy it. Equally, if you go into the London market, that can restrict your market as well. So you've got to look at that. And then you've got to look at the platform you sit on. And I mean, when I talk about platform, I'm talking about someone like ourselves. I'm talking about the platforms you might sit on. It could be is it the life companies you want to sit on? Is it the big banks like UBS, the Credit Suisses, Citibank, etc.? Those are really important. And then you've also got the distribution platform, or the transactional platforms, I call them. So here in the UK, we would have something like Eccentric or Standard Life, or I mean, Standard Life as they're called these days. So those are really important. And then, of course, one of the biggest issues is going to be seeding. Have you got enough assets on day one to get the fund going? Because if you launch with $1 million, you're dead in the water, unless you've got flow coming in and you can pretty well guarantee that flow. Then you need to be launching with between 20 and $30 million to really have any chance of launching a product.
So is that your minimum, 20 to 25 million?
Well, it's not our minimum. We do say to managers, you really should have 25 million. It's certainly within the first 6 months. So yeah, you can launch with 5 to 10, but if you're not confident that you're going to get 25 to 30 million in the first 6 months, and probably $100 million by the end of year 2, you've really got to think hard, because the expense ratios of funds is something which can kill a fund very quickly. So, and I'll probably touch on that later on.
Sure. Okay, great. And what's the main difference between someone setting up their own fund and, let's say, utilizing a third-party platform like your business?
Well, third-party platforms are relatively new in the marketplace. They sort of came up, but not long before we launched. I think the first few were launching. Prior to that, fund managers were sort of rightly so launching their own businesses. And if you think about it, boutique managers have become very, very prominent in the last sort of 10, 15 years. Prior to that, it was the traditional fund managers, the Invesco, the Fidelity, the BlackRocks. So then as we entered into the noughties, we got into a situation where boutiques came out. So they started to launch their own their own funds. And that was fine. But since then, what we've seen is an increase in costs. We've seen a huge increase in regulatory controls and oversight. So that's when the third-party platforms came to play. And so businesses like ourselves came up, and I guess the first thing where we stand head and shoulders above the setting up your own fund idea is speed to market. Yeah, you're going on a plug and play model. So all you're doing is you're putting your fund underneath along all the other funds that we have on there. You share the costs, you share the benefits of that platform. It means you can get to market in probably about 3 months. Whereas if you try to set up your own fund business, be it Dublin, Luxembourg, and again, I'll touch on those later on, but it can be anything from 6 months to a year before you can get the fund launched. Now, in some cases, you can get it quicker, but these days, time is becoming critical. So you've got the speed to market. You then have the cost savings I touched on before. So things like administration, you have cost savings there because you've got the economy of scale. If you're launching a fund with $10 million, you're going to have to pick up all the costs, be it the legals, the directors, the custodian minimum fees, all of that. By going on a platform, you're able to share the costs and you have the economies there. Talking on the directors, you obviously have a common director board. You don't have lots of different boards. You just have one board. So again, there's benefits of that. But then ultimately, and certainly in the recent years, last sort of 5 or 6 years, it's that issue about risk, and also to a certain extent capital as well. So the capital, you've got to tie up a lot of capital in the business. You've got to have boots on the ground, and that's a huge expense, or can be a huge expense. But the risk issue is a big thing. And then a couple of years ago, the regulators came up across Europe with a thing called CP86, which is a regulatory oversight. And that means you have got to, if it's your own funds business, you have got to put people in place who have got to manage the risk of the business, be it investment management, fund risk, operational risk, compliance, distribution, capital, financial, regulatory, or whatever it may be. There's 6 key areas, by the way. And you've got to manage that. And if one of those goes, oof, you're at risk, your business is at risk. Whereas with a third-party platform, what you have is they take on the risk. So they manage your risk. They manage your capital, so you don't have to put money into the business. So you release all that capital to go into other things, but more importantly, you're releasing personnel. So we as a business, often we took it up by being a mutual partnership. So we effectively become an external CFO, an external COO, an external head of distribution, and we help fund managers with all those different things. So when the half year or the annual reports come out, we work with the fund managers to get those done. There's no cost to them. That's part of the service. Whereas if you had to do it yourself, you could tie up your financial division for weeks on end. So there are some significant differences, but it's cost, it's speed to market, and it's risk. Those are 3 key areas. As long as you find a partnership with a third-party platform, you'll get those covered and mitigate all of those different things.
Got it. What's a management company actually do?
A management company, all a management company does is basically manage the affairs of the fund's board. So the fund board is there to represent the fund managers, and the fund investors on behalf of the fund managers. The management company makes sure that the administrator does its job, the custodian does its job, the lawyers do their job, and so on and so forth. So their job is pure oversight and management of the business.
Got it. Thank you very much. And what are the main differences between Luxembourg, London, and Dublin?
Basically, the simple things is down to distribution. London is UK centric, and we don't know what's going to happen post Brexit. Whether UCITS will actually be allowed in the UK, it's unlikely because that's a European genre. The Luxembourg area is more Franco-Germanic. Dublin is Anglo-Saxon, and I have to say, and I'm slightly selfish, Dublin has more of a can-do attitude. It certainly is. You can get things done quicker. I mean, I launched a fund a few years ago now. At the same time as launching one out in Luxembourg, the Dublin one went in 12 weeks. The Luxembourg took 6 months. You've got to recognise that, however, that you can sell Irish funds into Germany, but the prevalence in Germanic distribution is Luxembourg. It's right next door. But if you want to sell into the Nordics, Dublin is preferred. If you want to sell into South America, then Dublin is preferred. So, and Dublin is the fastest growing area of the fund platform basis. Culture is a big issue. If you go to Luxembourg in June, they're on holiday. You don't see them until September. Things like that are quite frustrating. Obviously, in Dublin, they tend to have lots of other holidays as well, but that's slightly different.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And what are the requirements for a fund manager in order to launch a fund?
I touched on it before, but it's make sure you've got seed capital. You've got a distribution strategy, which enables you to get that seed capital. Make sure you've got good marketing collateral. And when I talk about marketing collateral, I'm not just talking about fact sheets and presentations. I'm talking about ongoing, regular communication. Make a lot of noise. The guys at 24 Asset Management got into blogs, they got into Twitter, they got into LinkedIn. They created thought leadership aspects and were recognized very quickly as being leaders in that asset class. As far as dealing with people like ourselves, it's about responsiveness, reacting quickly to a request, transparency with the regulator, strong accounts, And if you can be regulated, that does help. Get regulated by a decent regulator.
Okay, great, thank you. And just the final question, that is, what are the key things around cost that a fund manager should look out for when launching a fund?
Well, you need to manage the cost base, because if you're not careful, your TER will blow you out of the water. And someone like ourselves, we're under pressure to make sure that investors get fair value and the value assessment regime that we now work under. We have to make sure the fund is good value. And if your TER is north of 2%, not only will investors not like it, but the wealth managers who are advising on those investments won't touch it, because it'll blow their overall TER out. So make sure you keep that TER low. So keep the cost down. You probably will need to subsidize if you don't get a good enough seed. You probably need to subsidize in the early months. But if you want to try and get some good cornerstone investors and get enough of them, get some founder share classes out there as well. So low fees in the early days for the initial investors. And then overall marketing, just noise. Speak to people, the press, and get yourself.
I was going to say PR is obviously very, very key to all this.
Huge issue. PR. I mean, I'm a great believer in PR, but in the right way. So don't just create noise, create insightful noise.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Stuart. So many thanks for your insights. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Go to the website, www.geminicapital.ie. That's geminicapital.ie.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time. And I look forward to catching up very soon in the summer, obviously being mindful of the 2-meter regulations.
Exactly. Thanks for your time, Nigel. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Stay safe. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care. Cheers.